All right, so we're going to go to our first media block. We're going to hear some about this UK terrorism, using words. It's terrorism now. But first, we're going to have to find out about Kamala's policies. The liberals this week were shocked to find out price controls are, like communism. I don't know if it's one of the 10 planks of the official outline, but it's definitely something that has been hallmarked in Soviet Union and China and other places that have done these types of controls, and it sets people up for failure and a new type of Great Depression on a scale that you could never imagine. So let's learn how to recognize it, stay away from it, insulate ourselves from the ill-intended effects that they are sowing right now. Last clip in the block is, the Secret Service has been in the news for the past 6 weeks. I forget what happened that put them in the news. Like, it's not a big deal. But recently, a Secret Service on professional protection detail duty at a rally for former President Trump decided it was a great time to take a break from protective duty detail and go breastfeed and get her people in through security without them checking in at all and getting pinned and all the other good stuff that has to happen. So just breaking all the rules to, hey, I'm a big proponent of breastfeeding. It's the best thing you can give your baby, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe she shouldn't be working a protective detail on someone who was just, attempted to have his head blown off a couple weeks ago. That's all I'm saying. So whoever scheduled the breastfeeding mom for that type of active duty is probably not going to get fired either. So anyway, let's go to this block and then we'll discuss it and kick it around.
Ed Krasenstein tweeted this. He said, MAGA now thinks that cracking down on price gouging is considered Marxist. Doesn't Trump keep trying to take credit for setting a limit on the price of insulin? Didn't Trump give subsidies to farmers after his trade war greatly harmed them? I guess Marxism is only Marxism when the left uses government power to control prices or give money to certain people, right? When I read that, I started busting out laughing because he literally just defines communism and is like, I guess communism is when you're communist. And so I had to tweet and I just laughing. Yes, literally effing yes. When the left uses government to control prices and give certain people money, that is literally what we are talking about with Marxist theory, communist theory, and socialist economics. And so then he goes in this thing about like Trump doing it too. And I'm like, dude,
tariffs on goods is not the same thing as
sure.
No. That's like an international trade.
A lot of people pointed that out. And giving subsidies to farmers literally is socialist economics. We are a mixed economy. Yeah. I am not a fan of how the government keeps intervening in the market. Trump does not get any special treatment. Marxism is Marxism. Communism. He's like, so is that Marxism too? Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't
also, who do you even propose is doing the price gouging? Like, if you live anywhere that has, this is from a free market standpoint, but if you have somewhere that has 2 grocery stores, if one of them is jacking up the price of one thing, then the other one is like, we're just going to lower our price by 50 cents on eggs, and then everybody's going to come buy their eggs from us. And then the other person is going to be like, we lost all our business, so now we're going to lower it. So it's like, I don't think they are actually price gouging. I'm
pro price gouging.
But I don't think anybody is really.
I am.
Pro what?
You're price gouging.
I'm pro price gouging.
I'm not saying pro. I'm saying people are actually like, are stores actually price gouging?
Oh, no, they're not, but I'm for it.
Sure. I mean,
I think anyone selling a good or labor can choose their own prices. Thank you and have a nice day.
I mean, Balenciaga sells a roll of tape for $3,000 that you put on your wrist. So like, that is price gouging. But if someone wants to pay it, if someone wants to pay it, then go for it.
And so price fixing, no, that should be illegal. When big corporations get together and say, hey, don't lower your prices, down to a certain level so that we can all rip a profit off these people. Okay, that's collusion and conspiracy to manipulate the markets.
Yeah, you're acting like a cartel at that point.
But I was mentioning this on the morning show. If like a hurricane hit and it wiped out all the infrastructure and people were like, we have no water. Oh no, we're going to die. And then some guy's like, oh man, I bet if I go and buy a bunch of water and drive it down there, I can sell this for a great amount and make some money because people have no choice. So they want to ban that because it's price gouging, right? No. You have to drive 60 miles with all the water you bought and all the work you did, and you can still only sell the bottle for $1. They're going to be like, why? I'll only make $30. What's the point?
Yeah, you won't incentivize them to.
Then the people down there die of dehydration.
Sure.
Or you can tell people, sell the water for whatever you want because the people down there will pay whatever, and that's fair market. So then you show up and you're like, I got water, it's $5.
Also, but after the first guy drives down there and makes a killing off of selling this water, then other people find out, they're like, wait.
And the prices go down.
And then the prices just becomes a normal market, and then prices just drop until it's just normal prices.
And you live in New York City. Like, I've gone to Mets games and Yankees games. You're walking to the stadium.
Yeah.
Everyone's selling water in the street.
I mean, subways everywhere. I mean, a lot of like the migrants now, that's kind of how they're like getting by, is they sell cookies and water and stuff out of coolers. And you're like, they sell it for whatever. Like, they sell it for the same price as you'd get it in a store or less.
So they have to make it competitive.
People just walk by and you're like, I want a bottle of water, and you just buy it from someone, and it's in your hand instead of, they save you the convenience of literally walking into a store.
Yeah.
Right? But again, nobody's, like, price gouging generally gets worked out by any sort of market force.
See, the thing about this tweet with, and I'll give the credit to the Krasensteins for this much. They get mentioned as much as they do because they actually interact. A lot of these liberals literally don't. They live in their own bubble world. So I can respect that. But this is quite literally the meme of, if you criticize them, then you must think Trump is infallible and Trump is perfect, right? So for Michael Malice, he posts this quote where it's like, I can't remember, it might have been Dave Smith who said this, that when you criticize a Democrat, their supporters have they have no idea how to respond to you, so they just assume you're pro-Trump. Dave Smith is a really good example of this when he was on Kennedy, and then he says, like, Joe Biden did this, that, and this, and Obama did this, and then the other guy goes, yeah, well, Donald Trump does this, and Dave goes, you're right, he did. Yeah. I don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But they just don't know how to respond other than, we hate Trump. Well, for Democrats, it's all they have.
Yeah.
Like, the Mises Caucus guys are overwhelmingly saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump, and they don't like him, but they really don't like Joe Biden, and it's a rock and a hard place. Biden supporters, or I should say Kamala Harris supporters now, don't understand that a lot of Trump's voters are critical of him. Some don't like him, but they recognize functional policy and a functional government over whatever it is the Democrats are.
But that's why they keep saying this is a vibes election, right? I mean, we're hearing it over and over again, like the same kind of adage of, well, he's a candidate I'd want to have a beer with, right? I'm sure there are tons of people who are going to cast a ballot for Donald Trump who would never want to have a beer with him, who don't like him, or they would have a drink just to criticize.
Plug their nose and they go, this is the best of the two options for my life. And
the draconian backlash to the UK riots has accelerated to totally insane levels. In the space of just 2 weeks, the bar has been set so low. They're now setting the precedent that this kind of speech is illegal. 40-year-old Wayne O'Rourke arrested on Sunday by Lincolnshire police. One of the main reasons for his arrest, according to the BBC, posting on social media, quote, anti-establishment rhetoric. Okay, fair enough then. Wait, what? Anti-establishment rhetoric? So, arrested for criticising the government on social media? Like they do in communist China? Is this really where we're at? Oi mate, have you got a licence for that anti-establishment rhetoric? O'Rourke had nearly 100,000 followers on X. Now, to be clear, that's not the only reason they gave for the arrest. Expressing support for the riots and offering advice on how to remain anonymous being two others, but the fact that they cited posting anti-establishment rhetoric as one of the primary reasons probably reveals a little bit more than they intended. Bernie Spofforth, arrested ostensibly for posting inaccurate information on X, specifically by falsely suggesting the Southport attacker was a Muslim refugee, but then caveating the tweet with the words, if this is true, then all hell is about to break loose. Being mistaken about something online is apparently a crime now. Thing is, as the Free Speech Union, which is likely to take up her case, explains, it's not. We will be amazed if she is charged, but if she is, we will pay for her defence. While Miss Spofforth may be guilty of spreading misinformation, that isn't yet a crime. And it would be hard to charge her with the Section 179 false communications offence created by the Online Safety Act, because one of its tests is that, quote, the message conveys information the person knows to be false. Clearly this isn't the case here. And yet being wrong on the internet is now apparently enough for you to get a knock on the door. 61-year-old David Spring, arrested for chanting "Who the F is Allah" and for calling police officers the C word as well as chanting at them, "You're not English anymore." 18 months in prison. Oh, okay, that seems fair. Did they just introduce blasphemy laws on a whim without telling us? And why are they being selectively applied? Spring's wife, who suffers from serious ill health, will now be deprived of her primary carer thanks to his imprisonment. Doesn't matter, lock him up. Lee Joseph Dunn, arrested and jailed for posting offensive memes on Facebook. 8 weeks in prison. Wow, these memes must have been pretty awful, right? They consisted of images of groups of men, Asian in appearance, alongside the words, "coming to a town near you." Oh right, that seems fair. And if posting inaccurate information about riots online is now a criminal offence, why are the people on the other side of the political spectrum who post inaccurate information about riots not being arrested or charged? In one case, a brazenly untrue but incendiary claim that a Muslim woman had been acid attacked by right-wingers, and another claim that excused the behaviour of a gang of Muslim men in Birmingham who went on to engage in violent disorder. We keep being told that two-tier policing in the UK is a myth, and yet there's two concrete examples of it. They get to apologise and immediately move on. Yet people on the right, even if they profusely apologise, get instant prison sentences. Right, okay, that seems fair. It's a question I've heard so many times before. Paul, you're nearly pushing middle age. Alright, rude. How come you look 10 years younger than you are? Only 10? Well, it's not rocket science. It's called regularly moisturising your face and having a good skincare routine. That's why I'm excited to have Tej Hanley as the sponsor of today's video. They help men start, and just click the link in the description. Skincare journey today.
My starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth. And the third most precious is a roof over your head. The clear problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been. The best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it.
Another salient question keeps popping up. Why are the vast majority of individuals in these cases immediately pleading guilty? Especially that even under the UK's draconian hate speech laws, they'd stand a very good chance of successfully defending themselves. Are they even aware that the authorities can't, at least not yet, give it a couple of weeks, just imprison you on a whim without proving what law you've broken? Unless you plead guilty. If you plead not guilty, it goes to court, and if you get a good lawyer, you might walk free. Do they not know that? And who, if anyone's telling them otherwise? Duty solicitors. Get your own solicitor. Again, as the Free Speech Union explains, in some cases, such as Bernie Spofforth, no laws were broken. They're now telling us observing a riot, merely laying eyes on it, not even taking part in it, is a criminal offence. Really? Under what law? Utterly absurd. What do you do if you just happen to be walking through the city and end up in the vicinity of one? Immediately put a blindfold on. Oi mate, have you got a licence for that? Eyesight. This guy got a year in jail for literally just being drunk at a protest. Even the judge questioned the sentence, remarking he did not hit anyone, throw anything, or spit at anybody. This guy was banged up for 26 months for gesticulating and shouting at police officers. 2 years plus behind bars for basically being angry. Okay, seems totally fair. And given the UK's full to the brim prison capacity, who's getting released to make room for boomers who post spicy memes on Facebook? Career criminals with more than 100 convictions. Okay, that seems fair. Who's not even getting prison time to begin with? Thieves? People who assault police officers inside airports. No charges yet, despite the assault being detailed on camera. Nonces with hundreds of CP images on the computers. Sex offenders. Groomers. People who molest girls, many such cases, fugitive bank scammers, massive benefit fraudsters, people who batter schoolgirls with metal bars, oh yeah, and people who illegally enter the UK, who don't get imprisoned or deported, but get free hotel rooms, food, cash and complimentary healthcare, while you pay for it. Oh okay, that seems fair.
All right, party peoples of the interwebs, call me crazy, call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. This story is so absurd, it actually looks like the Secret Service is trying to prove that they are incompetent in order to cover up for their corruption. Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, and just when you thought the Secret Service could not be any more incompetent, that they could not flag to the world their utter incompetence, a story like this breaks. Now, for those of you who might have been living under a rock for the last month, the Secret Service has sort of been under the limelight, the spotlight, as a result of their grotesque, negligent incompetence that led to a man being murdered, Corey Camperatore, 2 other Americans being grievously wounded, and the former president of these United States of America, Donald John Trump, nearly being assassinated live on television in HD for the world to see. But for the grace of God, he turned his head and we spared cataclysmic disaster at a global level. But the Secret Service has kind of been under the spotlight as to how could that have happened? How could they have left that roof at 140 yards, unsupervised, unmanned, where a kid, allegedly a 20-year-old kid, managed to climb on top of the roof after having been flagged as a suspect? You all know the story. It's absurd. It's fractal wrongness. In order to believe the story that they are selling us, we would need to believe in layer after layer of incompetence. It just doesn't happen. As I said, it's sort of like that movie Minority Report where you had an orgy of evidence and the guy says, you know how often I see an orgy of evidence? Never. In order to believe what the Secret Service is trying to get us to believe, we would have to believe that there was an orgy of incompetence, and you just don't see orgies of incompetence at that level. It can only be the result of deliberate negligence, or also known as let it happen or made it happen. But I think the Secret Service right now is trying to convince the world, no, we're not that corrupt that we would let it happen on purpose, that we would allow or facilitate the on-air, live, HD broadcast to the world execution of Donald John Trump. We are actually that incompetent, and I sincerely believe that is what is leading to this story today. A Secret Service agent, barely 1 month after the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, abandoning her post or leaving her post to go breastfeed her child at a rally in, where was it now, Michigan? From Newsweek, Secret Service investigating report agent left Trump event to breastfeed. But before we get into the Newsweek article, credit where credit is due, because the Newsweek article is based on breaking news coming from Susan Crabtree. Crabtree tweeted this out. You will not believe it. You will not believe it. Susan Crabtree at Susan Crabtree. Exclusive and breaking during a Donald Trump visit to North Carolina yesterday. North Carolina. It was North Carolina, not Michigan. Now back to the absurdity that they are expecting us to believe. During a Donald Trump visit to North Carolina yesterday, a woman Secret Service special agent abandoned her post to breastfeed with no permission / warning to the event site agent, according to 3 sources in the Secret Service community. Now, before I go on a tear, I'm just going to read through the tweet. It's so patently, preposterously absurd. It's beyond belief, actually. It's so beyond belief, I sincerely think the Secret Service is trying a little bit too hard now to convince the world that they are actually that incompetent to cover up for their corruption. Back to the tweet. Shortly before Trump's motorcade arrival, I'm told 5 minutes beforehand, the site agent was getting ready for the arrival. The site agent is the person in charge of the entire event security. The site agent went to do one final sweep of the walking route and found the agent breastfeeding her child in a room that is supposed to be set aside for important Secret Service official work, i.e. a potential emergency related to the president. A working agent on duty cannot bring a child to a protective assignment. The woman was out of the Atlanta field office. The woman agent was in the room with 2 other family members. The agent and her family members bypassed the uniform division checkpoint and were escorted by an unpinned event staff into the room to breastfeed, the sources said. Unpinned means they have not been cleared by the Secret Service to be there. When contacted about the incident, Secret Service spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said the incident did not have an impact on the event and it's under review. Quote, all employees of the U.S. Secret Service are held to the highest standards, end quote, he said. Quote, while there was no impact to the North Carolina event, the specifics of this incident are being examined. Given this is a personnel matter, we are not in a position to comment further. End quote. Holy hell, where do we begin with the absurdity of this story? All right, now, first things first, I am not saying that people should not be breastfeeding at work. My wife had 3 kids. She breastfed at work. She also pumped at work. I took so-called maternity leave when our first child was born, so I also have nothing against people who have just had children taking time off work to enjoy those first few weeks of bliss on Earth. But my goodness, a Secret Service agent, it's not as though she took some time off to go home to breastfeed. She took her newborn to an event where she was there specifically in the event of an emergency, such as the one we saw barely a month ago. It's not just that she's a breastfeeding agent on the field. She brought her child to the event. It's not just that she brought her child to the event in order to breastfeed. She left her post to breastfeed her child and apparently had 2 other family members at the same event in the room breastfeeding, a room which was supposed to be secure for emergency agencies. Everything about this is too stupid to believe. Gad Sad, I believe, has coined the term suicidal.
I think that'll about cover it on breastfeeding at work. It's a line from Top Gun. Anyway, it didn't have breastfeeding in it, but it had to do with flybys. Do you know about flybys, Scott? Maverick never got an approval, and yet he did flybys all the time.
Yeah. Man, hold on. My phone. I'm trying to do the double zoom thing.
Double zooming it, dude.
Yeah, the double zoom. Yeah. I don't even remember Top Gun, to be honest with you. I don't even know. I haven't seen the new one. I don't know.
It goes back to the original one because they do the flyby. They get in an argument, and then when they come out, they topple the Pepsi tray. And if you stop it, there's a subliminal Pepsi ad right in that interaction. So it's high tension in the movie, and then they blip Pepsi on the audience, and then people go buy soft drinks. That's
exactly
80s technology. So this the technology of the breastfeeding, that's been a known thing for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. Everybody's good with that. It's you're at a Secret Service event, you're guarding the president who is just, they shot him a couple weeks ago, and you're not at your post, and you're bringing people in who aren't cleared. There's a couple different issues with that, and I do think it's like Secret Service just saying, let's just keep laying down incompetence cards. Maybe people will feel bad and not really criminally prosecute the people who are responsible for all the coolness going on in our country right now. And that stuff that's going on in the UK, I just show that to you because it's not just America. The globalists are doing this everywhere. And what they're doing in the UK is like 2 steps closer to a gulag concentration camp than we have here. So don't think it's just going to stay over there. The same people run both places. That's the whole point of this show, by the way. The same people are running all these different places. It's not a national rulership that we're under. It's a supranational government structure that I've been educating people about for 20 years now. So as we get into the clips tonight, you just remember, it's not like Biden in the White House is making these decisions. There's a whole lot of levels above Biden, like the Atlantic Council. We might get to the Atlantic Council later tonight, but there's some other things we should discuss. There's a document that's in the next studio over. I'm going to grab it, Scott. Can you cover me for a second?
Yeah, I got it. Totally. Well,
I didn't want to lose the economics point that I wanted to make.
Go grab it. So, the first thing I was going to say in response to all those clips was like, at first, I'm personally very reassured knowing that Mr. Bean is based. Mr. Bean's on our side. Mr. Bean is on the side of free speech. So that was very encouraging. And then I'll just say, this may be an unpopular opinion, but a few different aspects of, okay, so the question I would have is like, how much has protocol changed with the Secret Service? Have they completely revamped all protocols start to finish? Have they put in new personnel in place? Do they have a very new strict policy to ensure that nothing like what allegedly happened on July 13th will ever happen again? Or is it just business as usual? Now, if it's business as usual, there's a couple things like this new incident kind of just lends itself even more to it. So if it's just business as usual, why is Trump even going out and doing events? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think he might be a little afraid? Do you think he might be a little like hesitant? And not only that, it kind of lends itself to like he might have known that was going to happen. He might have had the ketchup packet. Like, to me, the fact that he's out there fearlessly doing this with the same incompetent Secret Service lends it to the credibility that maybe he knew something was going on, was in on it. Also, and set that aside, maybe he wasn't in on it. It's irresponsible of him if nothing has changed. Somebody already died over it. And so, it's irresponsible for him to be going out and doing events if he hasn't completely revamped everything. You know what I mean? So I don't know. There you go.
mean, if I were him, I wouldn't be that confident, I guess, with that type of incompetence going on. That means she left her post, really. Mm-hmm. Like, it was during work. Like, they were like, somebody came around to check, like the boss came around to check and found out she's not at her post and where she, so again, that stuff shouldn't be going on. I wanted to contradistinct the ideas of price controls to free market economics. And, I'm just going to read this part for you. This comes from Murray Rothbard's Anatomy of the State. Economic means. This refers to the production and exchange of goods and services through voluntary cooperation, creativity, and entrepreneurship, where individuals engage in productive labor to create value or utilities for others to earn income. This generates wealth for all parties involved. They're voluntary transactions based on free will. Okay, that's what we all participate in. Here's how they participate. Political means. This involves the use of force and violence to seize the goods and services and production of others without providing any value or compensation. This method is characterized by theft, plunder, and coercion. It is employed by the state to extract resources from citizens. It is fraud, coercion, violence, communism. That's what they're talking about. That's the gist. I just wanted to add that to the record so people had nuance. There's non-plunder, and that takes work, communication, thinking, all those skills. And then there's theft, and you could just get in the government or some sort of nifty international cartel, and you could practice that around the world without a whole lot of resistance, to tell you the truth, because they have a heck of an immune system on that thing. They just say conspiracy theory and people go away. Works for decades and decades and decades while they kill our leaders and poison us with all various toxins and stuff, and undermine us and demoralize us and change our culture, attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs to really just change the American way of life into communism, which is what we're at the precipice of now. They're decloaking. They're hoping you don't know the difference. And a lot of their audience on the Democratic side that already supported slavery historically, they don't know the difference either. And that's part of the problem. But we will have a Democratic congressman that you're going to be very interested to hear later tonight in the episode saying they, them, those who can be easily named. Here's how they're running the world in a way that is supranational. So there's evidence to the claim. It's not just a statement. It's a foreshadowing. World government, deep state, Scott. When did you first have that on your radar?
Well, I mean, my biggest red pill was in around maybe like 2010, 2011 with Zeitgeist, the Tower 7. I was like, wait a minute, what? Tower 7? So that led me to Massimo Mazzucco's September 11th, The New Pearl Harbor, which kind of gave a big analysis of the whole 9/11 thing. And that was kind of my first wake up call into everything. And I've been just kind of looking into things ever since. One of my, I would honestly say my first 5 podcasts that got me looking into this stuff was Tinfoil Hat with Sam Tripoli.
Yeah.
Those conspiracy guys, Gordon Rochford, Higher Side Chats. And then within that year, I was working a job where I could listen to headphones all day. I stumbled across the Peace Revolution. And, so you were one of the very first people that red pilled me. And in fact, your episode on libertarianism was a huge wake-up call for me. I missed the whole Ron Paul thing, but I did get up to speed on libertarian philosophy through Peace Revolution, probably like 2017 maybe. So, all this whole thing led me down this path. And but in terms of like the New World Order, man, I don't know, man. It's kind of all roads lead to that, right? And then of course, having started listening to GrandTheftWorld, a few years ago, that's when I started to unpack the whole, Cecil Rhodes, all that stuff. I had no idea about any of that. So, how far back it goes, like the whole African connection and just, so that was new to me. So this show really hyperdrived my understanding of it for sure.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to GrandTheftWorld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.